Chapter 12. The meeting lasted minutes. Anna waited on one of the plastic chairs just outside the office, jiggling one leg over the other as she watched Mrs. Malloy perform her shuffling papers routine behind the front desk. The door opened and Abby walked out, followed by Principal Tucker. They shook hands before Mr. Tucker made an awkward hand gesture that was somewhere between "I love you" and "rock and roll" as Abby headed straight out the door. Mr. Tucker beamed as he scanned her from her tousled hair all the way down to the only skirt Anna had ever seen Abby wear. "Done deal," Abby said once they were out of the office. "I'm in?" "You're in." "How did you do it?" "Let's just say Tucker and I go way back. I know what I'm doing," she said to Anna with a wink. "He said you have to keep your grades up with your work schedule, and that he couldn't wait to see your artistic genius. I talked you up a bit. All of it is true." "It's a miracle, thank you," Anna said, wanting to hug Abby but deciding against it. "I should get to class. You heading back to the farm?" "No," Abby said, unconsciously smoothing down her skirt. "The Bracken, Will's Cafe. He's testing a couple of brunch recipes and invited me to a tasting. It's important to keep a good relationship with business clients." "Is that skirt appropriate for a business meeting, though?" "Shush," Abby said. "I'll see you after school." They said goodbye, and Anna headed down the hall, unzipping her leather jacket on her way to class. She'd never had someone stick up for her at school before, let alone talk up her strengths. "Don't screw it up," said a particular voice inside her, one she'd hoped had gone away. She was only 10 minutes late, but when she opened the door, everyone's head turned towards her in silence. Mrs. Gregg pointed for her to sit, so she did, wondering why she was commanding so much attention. Anna set her backpack under her chair as the focus shifted back to textbooks. She glanced over at Rye, who was glancing back at her. "Where were you?" Rye mouthed. "Where were you yesterday?" Anna mouthed back. Rye shrugged her shoulders and went back to reading. She didn't want to explain how she'd gone straight to the library after school to avoid Cole's group of friends, nor did she want to relive the recent round of harassment. Anna took out her textbook and peeked over at Cole. He was concentrating, but without turning around, he put his left hand up and did a very discreet slow-motion wave across his book. She smiled to herself, catching Rye's eye in the process, and then hunted for the page she was supposed to be reading. When the bell rang, there was a rush to the door. Miss Gregg shouted out the homework while students made a wide berth around Anna's desk on the way out. "What happened to you yesterday after school?" Anna asked. "I had a yearbook meeting. Kind of forgot I signed up last year," Rye said, lying and noticing Cole standing behind Anna. "Hey," he said to Rye, who didn't answer. "I'll see you at lunch," Rye said, and darted out the door. "What's this giant storm cloud between you two?" Anna asked. "You should probably ask Rye. Where are you headed?" "Biology. You?" "Opposite direction. Gym." They walked out of the class together, where Anna was immediately bombarded by staring eyeballs, people making a point of getting out of her way as they walked down the hall. "What is it? Is it the jacket or something?" "You're the new kid. Most exciting attraction in town. Why does it feel like every day is going to be the first day, all over again?" Anna watched the clock throughout algebra, waiting for the bell. She knew she was behind in biology, and in math too. But she let her mind wander back to the moment in the woods. Why hadn't Abby and Emmett told her that they shared land with the Brannons? There was obviously something going on, not to mention Rye's hatred of Cole. If this town was as small as everyone kept saying, there had to be an easier way to find answers. When lunch rolled around, Anna made her way outside. More and more heads were turning her way, more fearful than curious. And as she walked towards the same table she sat at the day before, other tables fell silent. "What up?" Brady said, putting up his hand for a high five as she sat down. "That's the question, B. People are crazy staring at me today, like I ate too much garlic or have the plague." "Yeah, that's probably my fault," Rye admitted, dipping a carrot stick into a container of hummus. "I might have told a harmless white lie in history yesterday." "What do you mean?" Anna said. "Two of these idiots from lunch were in my class saying stuff again, making it difficult. They were bringing up your name too and talking about how after school you called them quote-unquote the worst. So I might have said you had it out for them." "Like how?" "Specifically, I told them you were in a gang back in Los Angeles." "You what?" It's not like they've ever been there, and you are from East LA, which is all mi vida loca and whatnot. I did some research last night, and it made them look back off, so although it's clearly had some resonance throughout the school, the leather jacket helps. Nice touch. So what? Do you think gangs are all Grease or West Side Story or something? Because they're not. It's not something to joke around about. Anna immediately stood up for the table, nausea sweeping across her in waves. Why are you getting so upset? It worked, didn't it? Anna grabbed her backpack and walked away, leaving her lunch on the table. It wasn't as if she hadn't spent a lunch period in the girls' bathroom before. She thought it was funny how it seemed the longest or the shortest period of the day, depending on whether you had some people to spend it with. Though there were still several minutes left before the bell, she headed to art class early, just in case there were issues with the recent schedule switch. She was still shaky after what Rye said, but walking down the empty hallways helped. She hoped she hadn't walked away from their friendship entirely. Mrs. Darnell was sitting at her desk in the art room, sipping a cup of black coffee, her long gray hair hanging limply down the back of a smock splattered with paint. She was inspecting someone's watercolor painting, her face puckered like a dried lemon. Anna knocked on the open door. "Excuse me, Mrs. Darnell?" "What is it?" the woman said, flat and measured, not looking up from the painting. "I'm Anna Cortez, the new student," she said, hesitatingly. Mrs. Darnell turned towards her, resuming her concentrated inspection, her eyes creased as if staring into the sun. "Principal Tucker said to tell you I was joining your class today. I have the curriculum from yesterday, and I brought my own sketchbook and colored pencils." "How proactive of you," she said. "May I come in?" Mr. Darnell waved her hand, but Anna couldn't tell if that meant yes or no, so she entered anyways. "Are we doing watercolor?" Anna asked. "There are many ways in which to devise artwork in this class, Miss Cortez." She stood up and placed the watercolor back on her desk. "My only rules are to free yourself into the work and choose whatever medium you feel would bring your vision to life. I don't believe in being held back by convention, but as I was telling the class yesterday, fundamental basics, as in the proper tools or technique, are paramount in carrying you through the craft of creation. That is what I'll be emphasizing in here." "That sounds like something I can do. I already do a bit of drawing." "It's not a suggestion. It's a requirement for any work in my class," she said. Floating around the room, straightening the work tables and chairs, "I think you'll find it a challenge, despite your enthusiasm. There will be no light assessments, no lackadaisical renderings allowed in here. Many students think this class is a break, but I assure you it is not. I'm really looking forward. I do not accept anything less than the unleashing of the inner self." Anna jumped as the bell rang, though her nerves were already jostled. She stood in front of Mrs. Darnell's makeshift desk, a heavy piece of wood hammered into 2 sawhorses, the chipped surface covered in paint splashes, art books, and glasses holding brushes and pencils. Students scurried in and found their seats, the silence in the room in marked contrast to the noise of the busy hallway outside. Mrs. Darnell made her way to the back corner of the room and adjusted something heavy on a pedestal next to the only table with 2 available seats. Anna crossed the room, took a seat, and fished through her backpack. When she turned around, Rye was standing next to her. "What the F happened at lunch? Brady practically had an asthma attack." "Yeah, well, I had a life attack, or should I say life attacked." The sounds of classical music wafted across the room from speakers sitting on a corner shelf, and one by one each of the heads at the front of the class began turning around, focusing on the area just behind Anna's head, where I sat down next to her. "Class, if I can ask you all to turn around, please." Anna twisted in her seat and was met with a wide, ceramic bowl of fruit sitting atop a wooden pedestal at eye height. An apple, banana, pineapple, and pear stared back at her, begging to be rescued from the rigid tableau. "We did a free draw and paint session to warm us up yesterday, but this week is all about my getting an idea of each of your strengths and abilities as performed through a series of exercises," Mrs. Darnell said, pacing behind the bowl of fruit, her hands clasped behind her back. "Today, we're going to focus on still life, but not in the usual way. I want you to take a long look at this fruit bowl, commit it to memory, then turn back around and recreate it from whatever was impressed upon your psyche. Take a moment to look, reflect, then choose your instrument and begin. I want to remind you that you have 40 minutes to complete this task. You may communicate with one another only to divvy up the room's supplies, but once you return to your desk, you must work in silence. Little by little, the room grew louder as students got up and moved around to find their weapons of choice. There were shelves of pastels and charcoal, countertops stacked with various types of drawing and painting paper, and drawers labeled with everything from paint brushes to modeling clay and materials for collage. Anna reached down into her backpack and pulled out her sketchbook and pencils, and placing them on the table to a deep exhalation from Rye. "Let's make a trip around the room," Rye whispered. "Please." Not wanting to attract too much attention and noticing she was the only one who had materials on her desk, Anna pushed her chair out and followed. "What's your deal?" Rye asked, leaning over a set of drawers. "What do you mean?" "I'm sorry if I lied about you. No one cares." "Yes, they do, and you know that. You're the one having to lie your way around bullies rather than ignoring them. I've been there too. I know it hurts, but instead of lying to make yourself sound better, why don't you pull a Rosa Hex and use one of her best song lyrics? Did I stutter? No. I told you to shut it. And then walk away. It worked for me before." "Well, maybe you have more of a backbone than I do, and maybe you're stronger and better at handling this than I am, and you have no idea what kind of hell they put me through last year. And you have no idea what kind of hell I've been through the last 10 years. "Is it a competition?" Rye asked, throwing a drawer open. "Girls, find your materials," Mrs. Darnell bellowed from the other side of the room. "There's never any fabric or needles in these drawers," Rye said. "Find something else, then. Expand yourself," Mrs. Darnell said, helping a student tear up a newspaper for what seemed like no reason. "Look, I'm not comparing either one of our situations, but you shouldn't have said what you said. Why do they keep bothering you so much anyway? Why don't you ask Cole for an explanation?" "I don't know what happened between you two." "No talking, please," Mrs. Darnell said from her desk. I grabbed some paper and a pack of markers before crossing back to the table. Anna followed, both of them sitting down and ignoring each other. Anna took a breath and tried to block out the afternoon and envision the bowl of fruit instead. She saw it, clearly in the mind's eye, every divot in the pineapple, the sensuous slope of the pear, the unevenness of the bowl as it reached up on either side and held the fruits all together in a warm embrace. She pulled out a regular pencil and began sketching. It was always easier for her to access the images, harder to enter the trace-like state where everything falls away, and there's nothing but the mind and heart pushing thought into being on the blank page. Perhaps it was the classical music or desire to please, or maybe it was because her table partner had unnerved her so much, but Anna found it easy to sketch the faint trace of a once-known face onto the paper. "Utensils down," Mrs. Darnell said, as if only minutes had passed. "Please stop what you're doing while I walk around and observe. You may chat quietly among yourselves." "Holy Jesus," I said, momentarily forgetting they weren't speaking and leaning over Anna's detailed portrait of a woman carrying a bowl of fruit on her head. Though the woman's face was intentionally blurred, her expression was sad and downcast, the fruit and bowl rendered in meticulous detail, almost exactly as they were arranged in the real still life. "Those are some skills," Rye said. Anna turned around towards Rye's work. It was an unusually colorful drawing, almost childlike in its simplicity, of a faceless figure in a mini-dress that was shaped like multiple upside-down bowls. Each tier bowl of the dress was covered in a print pattern, mimicking the fruit in the bowl, all rendered in their most basic forms. "I'm better with my laptop or with a needle and thread," I said. "It's fun. I could see you wearing that." "Let's see the work, girls," Mrs. Darnell said, picking up Rye's drawing. "Very interesting. You broke free from your desire to use sewing accoutrements for the second day in a row. Miss Moon, congratulations. I'm excited to see you try some different mediums this year. While I like the concept and use of color in this piece, I'd like to see you ruminate for longer and free yourself from what's most comfortable to you." She handed the drawing back before picking up Anna, staring at it intensely. "Can you explain to me what this depicts, Miss Cortez?" "It's the fruit bowl, but I imagined it as if it were being balanced on the head of a woman carrying it home to her family after a particularly long, hot day. I wanted to pair the realism with a bit of fantasy, while also, what in your gut made you want to draw this?" Well, it just popped into my head. It reminded me of someone I used. Why is the woman's face blurred? I ran out of time, I guess.